It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Bible study. Of course, we believe as Christians that good Bible study habits, prayer, all the different things lead to a clearer mental focus. And God, of course, created us and has given us different ways and tools that we can use that really help us on every level. And of course, that all starts with, as we believe, a good relationship with Him. And we'll get to that discussion right after these messages.
The Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis is brought to you by Freedom 5K on July the 8th. We will be running it in the Shoals area, and all proceeds go to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I hate to see children suffer. I used to avoid St. Jude commercials because I just couldn't bear to see the images of kids fighting for their life against a dreaded disease. Then one day we got the call. Several weeks before, doctors in Huntsville had performed surgery on my son to remove a small tumor on his face. The call was from St. Jude. The doctors in Memphis wanted to take more margin around the tumor and run more tests. Within days, we were walking the halls and pulling cypress in the famous Little Red Wagons. I had to see the kids, a lot of them, some in wheelchairs, many missing hair as a result of their treatments. People from all over the world and all different backgrounds. All came for one reason, hope. Hope that they would be able to find a cure. It's that hope that gets me to run even when I don't feel like it. I run not for me, but for the young ones. I run to give them hope. Thankfully, my son is doing well. He bears the mark of St. Jude on his left cheek in the form of a scar. But it's a reminder to me of the fight that other kids are still fighting every day. The Freedom 5K on July 8th is just one more way to raise money for St. Jude. If you can run, then we hope that you will sign up. If you would like to sponsor, you can do that too. For more information or to register, go to benandtravis.com/store. That's benandtravis.com/store.
I'm Travis Creasy. That's All Pro Counselor Ben Hayes.
Hello and welcome to the show. We're glad that you guys are with us. And of course, as always, it's just fun and awesome to be with Travis Creasy, the man of the hour last night, as we were at the RCA benefit dinner and auction. And man, those auctioneers are fun. But Travis and Whitney got honored at that for their 15 and 14 or 16 and 15 years.
15, believe it or not.
16 years Travis has been there. 15 years Whitney, the real Coach Creasy, has been there. And it was awesome. So congratulations.
I appreciate that. It's been a wild weekend. The big fundraiser for Riverside is the Heart of RCA Auction, and it's always a fun time and always fun to kind of donate things and see how they go. And we had a lot of success. We don't have a total just yet, but we are happy that the Honorable Ben and Kenya Hayes decided to join us. And as per usual, our weekends are pretty action-packed. We're closing it out on a Sunday night. I'm sure that you delivered at least one lesson today. I know that I did. And so Ben did too. And so we thought, as mentioned in the intro, that we'd talk a little bit about Bible study, whether that's preparing for lessons, preparing just as an individual Bible study, maybe with some of your family members, or even someone that you're trying to maybe bring into Christianity, helping them with their relationship with God. And so we want to talk about that a little bit. As we mentioned in the announcements, in the messages leading in, we are getting ready for the Batify Freedom 5K on July the 8th. And there are levels of sponsorship for that. We got the red, white, and blue, red being the big sponsorship with all kinds of goodies that come along with it, the blue, and then the white sponsorship for that. And we're still working on some dates for the dodgeball, but you can double dip on those and get a discount for the dodgeball. But as we get ready, I'll go ahead and start. Kind of one of the things that I always want to come to Scripture with is this mentality of learning. I want to learn because I, first and foremost, don't know everything about Scripture. And I think that that's a good, important starting place going in. So even if I'm preparing, obviously if I'm going in and just studying it for my own mental health, well-being, I'm looking to learn I feel like if there's something exciting there for me that I get, then it's going to be easier and more exciting for me to present it if it's a sermon or Bible class. And of course, anybody I'm studying with, you want to present a level of humility that I'm not the master course teacher of this. And so we're kind of coming together to learn something about God that maybe, and you know this, you can read something 1,000 times and 1,001, something jumps off and you're like, whoa, that was mind blowing. So that'd be where I would start, that I'm looking to learn as well and be drawn closer and be corrected if necessary in the text.
Yeah, I would add to that. In the process of learning, I try to break down the passages. I love to preach just out of a text, whether, whatever you want to call that, expository or textual. I don't know. I'm probably somewhere between textual and expository. I'm not sure I get that in depth as some people do. But I really like to just take a passage and pick it apart. And in doing so, and I think this is where, individual study, all of those things come into play or could come into play, is, looking for keywords, looking for key phrases, looking for something that might, be repeated a couple of times. Like this morning's lesson, for instance, was from Psalm 65. And I actually, it was one of those things, I was looking for a verse to read, in the service that was on worship and praise. And that one was one I kind of found. And I was like, oh, that's good. That's what they'll read before the lesson. And then I decided that's going to be the lesson. So they read it. And then, it had the phrase over and over again, was not really like this big word that you're like, oh, in depth. It was just, you are, you are, you are. So everything was, you are this, all the things that God does and all that, he hears us. The Lord hears us, and so there's all these different things that Psalm 65 talks about, and it just kind of jumps off the page when you start writing down, okay, what are all the characteristics of God in this? And you just see that over and over again. And so there's just things like that I try to look for that might be helpful when I'm reading the passage, because some passages can get kind of difficult, arduous. I guess the stuff gets lost in it sometimes. The meat gets lost because of the wording. So if you can sort of try to hone in on certain phrases or certain words, or look for, what is it saying to me in this passage? What's it saying about God in this passage? Trying to direct to put some focus on it.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is, what would it mean to the original hearers? And we're currently in Revelation in my high school Bible classes, so you can be praying about that. But so when you get in trouble in scriptures, you kind of ignore what it would have meant to the people who read it first, the themes that they would have picked up on. It's kind of interesting. A few weeks back, I guess some months now, I was in the middle of doing Psalms, and Will posted a picture of the Psalm that you were studying. You were preaching out of that morning, and I had preached out of the one before it or after it the same Sunday morning. So that's pretty cool. But, the idea of themes, to your point, this morning I got up, I was going to use John 20. I'm talking about the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. In John 20, when he appears to the disciples minus Thomas, there are creation themes all the way through that. Like, I am recreating, and John 1:1, of course, is a reference to Genesis 1:1. And so you get to John 20, and he breathed on them. You breathe the breath of life into the nostrils of man. You're going to go and subdue and have dominion over it. In the same text, he says, you're going to have authority when you give forgiveness here, they're forgiven in heaven when they're this and that. So it's 3 points there that I've read that text probably 50 times. But then it's like, what are the themes that the original hearers of the Gospel of John would have gotten, that they would not have had to read it 1,001 times? because I'm
Hmm.
2023 Gentile. Um, and sometimes it's wrapping your head around that. And so it's nice when you can come to those things, but then there's if it's a Bible study with someone or teaching or preaching, it's trying to present it in a way that they're gonna get it too.
Right.
And I think that's where I come up short a lot of times. Is like, people leave scratching their head, going, "What in the world was that all about?" Um, but it's
Well,
really
I have an interesting challenge every day, and especially on like Wednesday and Thursday, because so Sunday I preach Sunday morning generally. Sunday evening we have Bible classes. So Sunday mornings have kind of been somewhat of a hodgepodge this year. I usually have kind of a theme, but we've been doing it a little differently. So can't put my finger on exactly what all I'm doing, but Sunday nights right now I'm doing a lesson in the auditorium on Malachi. I'm doing a series of lessons on Malachi, a Q&A with God. And then, and in that we're looking for, okay, where is it that they're asking these questions, or that Malachi is saying, they're saying, how have we defiled you? These different things that come up. So I've got that. But then Wednesday night is a survey of the New Testament. Basically, we're just kind of talking about the general outline of each book, what they mean. Every morning of the week, including Thursday morning, I do chapel at Mars Hill. So we're going through the book, the Gospel of John, in there. So I do, 5 or 10 minutes of a lesson on John. And then Thursday, about 11 o'clock, I start a ladies' Bible class at church, and it's on Genesis. So I'm in Malachi, John, and Genesis. And some days I don't remember which one I'm in. When I'm going from place to place. We just got done with Jude and on Sunday nights too. So anyway, there's just those different things. So with each one of those, or some of them are a little different. With the ladies, we just read verse for verse all the way down through Genesis. We've been in Genesis for like 2 years or something like that. We just kind of look for the story. What are some of the applications in it? Lonnie Jones, a long time ago, gave me these 3 words. We look for facts, concepts, and application. What are the facts in the story? With the facts, what are the concepts? That can be applied: faith, hope, love, joy, peace, patience, whatever those concepts are. And then what's the application, for me? So I got the concept. I know what the facts of the story are, and I've got the concepts of the story. Now, what do I do with those things in my life? And I feel like, I don't know, growing up, Travis, and you may can answer this too. I feel like growing up, I got a lot of facts and we got a lot of concepts. I don't, and this is no bash on anybody, but I don't remember until I got quite a bit older, really the applicable stuff about here's what you're supposed to do with this knowledge. And I don't feel like I got that. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's the difficult part. And then you go back and you kind of look and go, well, what are factual? And I think that any preacher, any teacher that's really worth their salt wants you to go. They don't want you to just take the 25-minute, 30-minute, some people 45, hour and a half minute lesson. Not me on Sunday morning. And that's it. Like, most of us don't want the drive through. We want to like pique your interest, maybe get the appetite built up or give you a little thirst, and then you go home and study it. So like Ben, I agree with Ben, we probably didn't get a lot of that, but there's also a responsibility on the hearer to go, okay, now is this true?
Absolutely.
I think Paul talks about the Bereans being more noble because they sought the scriptures. They didn't just go, hey, this is the Apostle Paul, of course he's right. They went and sought it out. And so, the application is a tremendous thing that, what does this look like on Monday? Most of us can put it together for a Sunday morning for an hour and a half, 2 hours, an hour on Wednesday night. But what does it look like on a Monday when I feel like trash, or I feel like giving that guy cut me off in traffic? Where does that appeal? And some of the greatest and the best speakers, the best teachers, the best Bible study leaders are the ones who can do that. Like, here's where I missed the mark on this text and can connect with people. And so, yeah, I think that's a difficulty. And I think part of that, and I've recently, I'm not telling anybody to go get TikTok. That's where we put your Friday refreshes, and kind of why the reason we started when we put something positive on there. But there are a lot of people on there now who do lives. And one is prove to me that God exists, or prove to me that God doesn't exist. And the mistake people get on there, they get fired up and they're super emotional about it, which it should stir up your emotion. The belief in God is an emotional thing, but they get on there and they don't listen, right? They don't listen to what the person really wants. And a lot of those people, they just want likes. They want eyeballs. They might not even believe what they're saying. They believe they're just trying to get likes. But if you listen to people, and so one of the things that I've tried to do when I try to study with people or open up the conversation, what do you believe about Jesus? Like, what do you know about Jesus? Because a lot of times, and I think maybe even growing up, we were taught to start with the things we don't agree with. And then we never get to Jesus. Start with Jesus, and who is he to you? Is he the Son of God? Is he just some historical figure? What is your thoughts on him? You're eventually going to get to the issues, and a lot of them will solve themselves if Jesus is the authority. And so I think it's really neat here at Riverside. I'm sure they do it at Mars Hill. I mean, we do through the Bible twice. If you go from kindergarten through 12th grade, you at least get it twice, if not 3 times. And so I get asked sometimes, how do you deal with the issues when they come up? I said, well, when you do it verse by verse or book by book or topic by topic, you don't have to harp on those things because they just come up. They're going to be in the conversation. And so I think of Jesus when he says, my yoke is easy. That was a common phrase. The yoke was a common phrase among rabbi. And I was reading this with Whitney just a few minutes ago. And it was kind of their teaching. So when he says my yoke is easy, he says my teaching is simple. It may not be easy to exercise, but it can be understood by people who don't have a PhD in theology, or at least I hope, because I don't have one of those. And so I think that's an encouraging thing. Hey, start with me and work your way down, and we'll deal with all the issues. And so I think a big mistake, and there are a lot of people who make a lot of money and a lot of popularity off starting with, here's where we don't agree. And, I think that a lot of that can be cut out if we start with some common ground, whether that's Jesus is the Son of God or yes, Jesus existed. Those are 2 different approaches.
Yeah. And you mentioned the yoke too. He doesn't say it's not tough at all.
Yeah.
I mean, a yoke's heavy, period. Yeah. But he said, my yoke is easy.
And I think it's comparison to Pharisees and Sadducees. Yeah. He goes, these guys are adding all these extra hoops. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you what you need.
And I think there's a piece of that too. I think you're right. I think it probably does apply to the fact that he's comparing himself. But I've also always in my mind thought the things that God teaches, the things that Jesus taught, makes the burdens lighter in the world that we face. We try to take on the things that the world wants us to do, that oftentimes the people who think that they have figured things out better than God, and those burdens end up being a lot heavier, just like the Pharisees were. And so I do think that that's a huge thing for us to understand, is that when we study, we're not going to know it all, but it is meant to be something that benefits us and builds us and helps us. God didn't make it. He didn't want it to be so tough we couldn't understand it. So I think that it's understandable and doable for every person.
Yeah, to that point, I think, and this morning I talked about victory over confusion. There's always initial confusion over the identity of Jesus when he's raised from the dead, because that's just so outside of of course it's not Jesus, he's dead. Right. So they don't know, but he brings clarity to confusion. He starts with the scriptures, Moses, and he brings it, and weren't our hearts burning within us when he read the scriptures, And so I guess the question I kind of try to start with about Jesus, and then my next one is am I adding to the confusion? Have I created an obstacle to the text that may not be there? Or have I made it too easy? Have I made it, have I relaxed it too much? And so I kind of start with the issues that I might bring, admitting my own bias when coming to the text and really trying to see the exegesis there, for a big word, about just wringing out all the good stuff.
Well, I think I have this Bible, it's taped up now, but it's almost getting in my old age too difficult for me to read the letters because they've gotten so small. The letters have shrunk somehow. I don't know how that happened.
No way.
But I've got just pages, like some of the letters of Paul are just, covered with notes for those who might be reading. There's or watching on YouTube,
That's
Facebook.
light.
There's more, there's as many notes off in the margins as there are. And I found that was really helpful too, is, when I'm studying, I try to fill in over there and write some things down, get a Bible that I got some margin, or take a notebook. And I do better than I do if I'm trying to just type it up. So the sermons and things like that, I'm typing them up. But a lot of times if I'm just studying for myself or studying even for a Bible class or something, I'm putting the notes in my Bible so that I've got those for a later time. And they're just easy to have. And it helps you to sort of start to see some of those patterns that are in the text. And I think there's just a lot of different ways that you can start with. Like I said, you may start with, okay, what does this passage all say about God? What does this passage all say about what I'm supposed to do? What's the flow of this chapter? And you can go, man, isn't it great to have the internet? Like, I know there's bad things about the internet, but I mean, if you want a verse on something, you can say, what are the verses on love? What are the verses on whatever? And they're there. And I use that a lot because I'll know, okay, I know the verses I think about with love. And I'm sure that the church at Highland Park is tired of hearing the passages that I think about, because if they pop in my head while I'm preaching, I'm going to say them. So therefore, I try to find some that I haven't thought about as much, or, some that I might have missed. And so some of those things, I try to use the internet to help look up some of those passages, but also, if I don't understand a word, if I don't, if I need an illustration to go with this, if I, whatever it may be, you've got the internet at your fingertips that can help you, find things. Obviously you kind of look through them and you weed out the things that might not be, helpful, but there are a lot of helpful things. And what I think what I started to say on that was outlines. Go online and just go, what's the outline of the book of Colossians? And then you can use that to go, oh, that's cool. There's a breakdown to how this thing works or whatever. There's that, but then also, try to outline it yourself. If you can do that. If you can't, then grab an outline and let somebody else walk you through it.
I know of at least one tremendous one, and then maybe a couple that are subpar, but one is ministryleague.com. You can go check it out. There's a lot of free stuff there. I don't know if there's outlines, but I think there's Bible classes. You can go to this website called benandtravis.com. Ben is posting some amazing blogs over the last few weeks that we've been beneficial. We've had a lot of comments in our Facebook group. And then, of course, we post our outlines of lessons on patreon.com/benandtravis as well. That's a monthly thing, $5. And you get all these podcasts that we do. You get them early. You get this one without any ads. And we post our outlines as they come along as well, among other things that you get early. But as we close out, I'd like to give a shout out to some of our oldest Patreon supporters. Of course, there's Caterman, there's my mom, Doris Creasy, Justin Brederick have been supporting us a long time. So thankful to them. They're keeping the lights on, as mine actually went out in the middle of this broadcast. But have a good one, Ben. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll talk to everybody at a later date.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.